Heart's Whisper, series of odes by John Keats. John Keats was one of the main figures of the second generation of Romantic poets, along with Lord Byron and Percy Bysshe Shelley, despite his works having been in publication for only 4 years before his death from tuberculosis at the age of 25. Although his poems were not generally well received by critics during his lifetime, his reputation grew after his death, and by the end of the 19th century, he had become one of the most beloved of all English poets. He had a significant influence on a diverse range of poets and writers. The poetry of Keats is characterized by sensual imagery, most notably in the series of odes. This is typical of Romantic poets, as they aimed to accentuate extreme emotion through an emphasis on natural imagery. Today, his poems and letters are some of the most popular and most analyzed in English literature. Some of the most acclaimed works of Keats are Ode to a Nightingale, Sleep and Poetry, and the famous sonnet on first looking into Chapman's Homer. Ode to a Nightingale by John Keats, recorded on May 2nd, 2020. Ode to a Nightingale. My heart aches, and a drowsy numbness pains my sense, as though of hemlock I had drunk, or emptied some dull opiate to the drains. 1 minute passed, and li the words had sunk. 'Tis not through envy of thy happy lot, but being too happy in thine happiness, that thou, light winged dryad of the trees, in some melodious plot of beechen green and shadows numberless, singest of summer in full-throated ease. Oh, for a draught of vintage, that hath been cooled a long age in the deep delved earth, testing of flora and the country green, dance and provincial song and sunburnt mirth. Oh, for a beaker full of the warm south, full of the true, the blushful hippocrene, with beaded bubbles winking at the brim, and purple-stained mouth, that I might drink and live the world unseen, and with thee fade away into the forest dim. Fade far away, dissolve, and quite forget what thou among the leaves hast never known, the weariness, the fever, and the fret, here where men sit and hear each other groan, where palsy shakes a few sad last grey hairs, where youth grows pale and spectre thin and dies, where but to think is to be full of sorrow, and leaden-eyed despairs, where beauty cannot keep her lustrous eyes, or new love pine at them beyond tomorrow. Away, away, for I will fly to thee, not charioted by Bacchus and his birds, but on the viewless wings of poesy. Though the dull brain perplexes and returns, already with thee, tender is the night, and haply the queen moon is on her throne, clustered round by all her starry face. But here there is no light, save what from heaven is with the breezes blown, through venturous glooms and winding marshy ways. I cannot see what flowers are at my feet, nor what soft incense hangs upon the boughs, but in embalmed darkness gaze each rate wherewith the seasonable month endows the grass, the thicket, and the fruit tree wild, white hawthorn and the pastoral eglantine, fast fading violets covered up in leaves, and meet May's eldest child, the coming musk rose full of dewy wine, the murmurous haunt of flies on summer eves. Darkling I listen, and for many a time I have been half in love with easeful death, called him soft names, in many a mused rhyme, to take into the air my quiet breath. Now, more than ever, seems it wraith to die, to seize upon the midnight with no pain, while thou wert peering forth thy soul abroad in such an ecstasy. Still wouldst thou sing, and I have ears in vain to thy high requiem become a sod. Thou wast not born for death, immortal bird. No hungry generations trade thee down. The voice I hear this passing night was heard in ancient days by emperors and clown. Perhaps the self-same song that found a path through the sad heart of Ruth, when sick for home she stood in tears amid the alien corn. The same that ofttimes hath charmed magic casements opening on the foam of perilous seas in fairy lands forlorn. Forlorn, the very word is like a bale to toil me back from thee to my sole self. Adieu, the fancy cannot cheat so well as she is famed to do, deceiving elf. Adieu, adieu. Thy plaintive anthem fades past the near meadows, over the still stream, up the hillside, and now it is buried deep in the next valley glades. Was it a vision or a waking dream? Fled is that music. Do I wake or sleep? End of Ode to a Nightingale by John Keats.